Okay, so I called to order. Hello, Luann, can you hear us?
Yep.
Good,
Yep.
good.
Okay.
Okay, I called to order the meeting of the Regulatory Review Committee of October 13th at 10. Oh, actually 9:58. We have to wait 2 minutes.
Yeah. Hello.
Okay. Make sure to record.
I'm gonna pop. There we go.
Okay, this is Paul Aho. I called to order the PZC Regulatory Review Committee meeting, special meeting of October 13th at 10 a.m. Everyone is present. Craig Witch, Luann Cooley, and Paul Aho. We have minutes from, can we approve 2 minutes at the same time? I think we can.
Sure.
So we have minutes from June 2nd and September 15th.
And September 15th, you did not have a quorum, so they're just really notes.
Oh, okay, right. So we just need to approve the minutes of June 2nd.
And then note the minutes of 9:15.
Okay,
Okay, well, I'll put forth a motion to approve the minutes of the RRC for 6/02/22 and to note the notes from 9/15/2022.
okay. Moved by Cooley,
Which will second?
and I approve, unanimous. Okay, I assume, do we have any public comment?
We did not receive any public comment.
Okay. And so we'll move on to the proposed regulations for cannabis establishments, which I assume is something that needs to be addressed quickly, right?
So Mike, we did receive draft regulations from Taiki, and hopefully you all had a chance to review that. And in your agenda, I also included the survey results from June that you looked at, or I guess the final results were on June 2nd. So I'm going to hand this over to Mike D'Amato, but one thing I did notice, Jillian and I just met about these, is that the commission before was, I mean, I probably didn't make this clear to Mike, you were not in favor of allowing cultivation and production at this
That's correct,
time.
yeah.
So we'll just remove that section,
Yeah.
and then we can talk about the other sections. And then also, based on the survey results, it seems like we may be able to allow cannabis establishments in some of the other zones like PB5. And yeah, so anyways, I'll hand it over to Mike and let us know what your thoughts were and what other towns are doing.
Yeah, so can you just repeat what did the commission wasn't in favor of?
Cultivation and production, and I probably did not make that clear to you when we handed that over.
Okay, I see. Yes, I just want to, okay. So this removing those uses, okay. Yeah,
Although it did say that we wanted to study it, so that was kind of a mixed message there. Yes and no. But actually it's no. It's no, and we want to study.
Yeah, put a pin in it, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we sort of took a number of different versions that we've prepared and that I have reviewed. When I wrote my first set of these, I probably read 10 different examples, and they're more or less the same. You know, cannabis is something that I think a lot of people are concerned about because of what it is, but the actual use, there's nothing complicated about it. It's all stuff that the commission is used to dealing with others. So we're not reinventing the wheel because we don't need to. So you know, in talking with some folks that are working on the design side of these projects, that's where you're getting some of the distances that you see. So looking at retail as a start, you'll see that we have the distance of 1,000 feet from like establishments, and then you're seeing that we have separating distances to some of the civic facilities that you have there. We're regulating hours of operation, no consumption on site, and then signage we're saying shall be in accordance with Article 10C, which is your regulations, as well as the legislation, which is the legislation is very restrictive. It goes beyond what you can do as a commission because you can't regulate content, but the bill does. So
Interesting.
they have very specific things that they can't have, like glowing, flashing pot leaves and all that other stuff, right? Cartoons, and there's very, very strict advertising requirements. So we're pointing to both. The next sort of piece to that is that we require them to provide what we're calling an operational plan, which then gets into a minimum of the following and how the site will be managed. I have seen these submitted, and I can provide you with examples if you're interested in reading them. They work pretty well, and it gives you an idea as to how it will function on a daily basis. Parking, traffic, obviously circulation, those are all pretty standard. And you may or may not know through the legislation that, for a period of time when this thing gets started, if you have a retail operation, there is a process by which the town can work something out so that if there's a massive concern about traffic and backups and everything else, that, the applicant can pay for some temporary police coverage for traffic monitoring, et cetera. So the distances, the 1,000 feet, they are sort of what we're seeing a lot of other places look at, but they're basically arbitrary. You are not likely to see 3 retailers showing up on the same, in 4 corners. You're not going to see that. So that number can obviously easily be pumped up or taken down. We're qualifying that there's obviously a difference between like uses and then a church or a daycare and park, playground, et cetera. And obviously those can be adjusted as well. I'll skip 4 and then go to 5, which is just allowing for co-located uses, which won't really apply in this case based upon striking 4. And then the last piece, which is the 6, conditional approval, basically is setting forth that there will be no boilerplate yes answer if the application is approved. There will be conditions that they'll be required. We're sort of upfront that any application approval will have to meet these standards. And so requiring that they continuously maintain all the requirements the state of Connecticut has is pretty standard. The second one basically requires that they fully execute their state approvals within a specific amount of time. The tricky part is the state has been behind on every single deadline they have established for this since passing the law. So we're providing for up to 2 extensions of this in consultation with the planning director, provided they can demonstrate this. Because if they need their local approval and then they got to go to the state and the state misses the deadline and then they lose their local approval because it times out, it's just a circle the drain mentality. So that is it in a nutshell. It becomes significantly easier for us if we strike 4. So I'd love to hear thoughts, questions, comments. Love it, hate it.
I have one question, Mike, about the operation plan. Is there, should there be more specificity, or could we just ask them to include that as part of their statement of use?
So this is at a minimum. We can add as much to this as you want, but yeah, I think of it as a really beefed up narrative of that. So if there's other things that you want to require, we can certainly include that. Sure.
So as far as the zones go, we got PB1 and we got 4 corners. But from the survey, it seemed like people were not against Perkins corners also. Should we add Perkins corner or no? Or just leave it those PB1 and Four Corners?
I'd be inclined to leave it and see what happens.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it at those two.
Yeah, and I have another question too about the 3A. And this is just a question about definitions of park and playground. And are those town parks, town playgrounds, or what about playgrounds on private property? I'm just thinking about at Four Corners where we have
Right.
several applications, some open, where some of the amenities may be considered park, or maybe there may be considered a playground. Would those fall under this provision?
It's a good question. I think the way that it's written, the intent is really looking at the use of property. So we could, if you don't want them to be tripped up with something like an amenity, we would just add the word, we could add the word town park, town,
Right,
you know.
right.
But
Town owned.
Right. If you did, then we would want to qualify that more clearly so that it would be, you know, any parcel or portion thereof or
No,
something.
we don't want
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Is it park include like a preserve? Because trying to think, you know,
There's one right
500
off of
feet.
320 right up there, right?
Yeah, I think that's greater than 500 feet. And is that like a Joshua's Trust property?
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe we just need a little more specificity there, because you know, there could be more open space added in the Four Corners area. We have a big conservation easement behind the standard, and you know, there's a lot of wetlands, and we eventually there could be a preserve there.
But
Maybe we should just take that out completely, because at Four Corners, maybe one day we want to build a town-owned playground. That would prevent us building a town-owned playground.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking actually more the other direction, because, you know, I don't want those preserves, whether they're town owned or not, to become use sites,
Oh, I see.
cannabis use sites,
Right.
because that kind of destroys the point of that. And if we're
Hmm.
trying to incentivize an awful lot of family housing up there at Four Corners,
Hmm.
allowing that, you know, having an amenity like a lovely playground and then having a cannabis site down the street might be unappealing.
Hmm.
And
So,
it's
I
sort
mean,
of, it's one
I'm
of
just
those
looking-
things, we're looking from this use to those uses, but you wouldn't prevent a church from showing up later, right? It's not like a two-way
No.
restriction. So
no, you could build
Yeah.
your playground, but you would have to deal with a non-conforming use. Does that make any sense? It's not really non-conform. It wouldn't really be non-conforming if the cannabis establishment was already there, but you wouldn't be able to use that as a criteria for shutting it down.
but it could limit potential future expansion of that facility, but
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know that that's really expansion of a retail facility. I don't know that you're really going to probably see that anyways.
So, but we don't care if liquor stores are within 500 feet of, so, I mean, I totally see where you're going with that, Luann, but it's like,
yeah. Well,
I-
but I'll point out that when we were tramping through some of that, you know, wetlands and stuff, we were finding, you know, those little tiny bottles from the liquor stores and stuff
oh,
too.
I know,
So,
yeah, no,
so just because we don't do it for liquor stores doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But I know what you're saying. I mean, it's very hard to figure out how to parse
Right.
this.
yeah, no, it's just,
I just
yeah.
don't want us to get into a situation where later on we try to interpret park as being only town or to be more expansive. I think we would have trouble interpreting it as more expansive. Frankly.
Yeah, I would lean toward taking it out completely because of the problems of interpretation.
Well, or you could just put the word park or preserve.
We can make it say whatever you want. You guys have to decide whether you want it
Yeah.
beefed up or removed, but we can make it say whatever you decide you're comfortable with. That part isn't hard. And we'll make sure, like, to your point, that there isn't an issue with, you know, down the road determining intent.
Do we want to say public park or preserve? Public?
Well, does Joshua's count trust stuff then count as public? Sure it would, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like a good compromise.
But then you wouldn't be able to put anything in Four Corners, right?
Well, I don't think that's true.
No, because no.
Oh, because it's too far away?
Yeah, it's only
it's greater
500
than
feet.
500 feet.
Okay.
That's not too bad. We could map it. I mean,
Yeah, no, I did a little GIS measuring, not in Four Corners, but I believe that the loft preserve up there is greater than 500 feet.
Okay.
I have a question. Aren't we just allowed to have one establishment in our town?
Not anymore.
No, not
no.
anymore.
Oh,
The-
Okay,
Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in May that the
Ah.
legislation changed. They removed the cap.
huh.
Yeah, they snuck it in the implementer bill.
Ha.
Yep.
Interesting.
Now,
So-
we probably won't be the first town to have it, so I don't think we'll have traffic jams, right? Some town is bound to beat us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working in Willington. We have one that's going for public hearing on Tuesday.
Great.
And
Let Willington go first.
that's
We
right.
won't have a traffic jam.
where is it going, Mike? Where's the proposal?
Phelps Plaza.
Mhm.
Where near Wellington Pizza 2?
Yeah, there is interest in locating these uses in former banks because they contain
Hmm.
vaults.
Mhm.
So if you have a former bank that's empty, but also if you're part of the social justice lottery or skipped the lottery and went through that process, if you obtain multiple licenses, they're required to be 20 miles apart. And
Hmm.
so what they have started doing, this particular organization got 7 licenses and they have to separate them each by 20 miles. And so as they start dropping them through these various towns, that's how they find themselves in places you might not expect. Their sense is that they feel that 2 or 3 cultivation facilities around 30,000 square feet will try to eventually find their way north and east of Hartford. That may not be right away. 30,000 square feet is not very large, but we allowed both in Willington. One of the really important points for them was 3% tax revenue goes directly to the town on the retail side, which isn't insignificant for a town as small as Willington. So
I think we have enough public opposition here in Mansfield, as generated from the biotic greenhouse hearings that,
Dana called me here.
you know, I don't think we'd want to push it.
Yeah, no cultivation here. Yeah.
and that's the harder one anyways, because you got to deal with smells and so that, you know, makes it simpler.
So if we put the word public before park and add preserve, park or preserve, that probably,
That should work. That should
Work.
work, yeah.
And I sort of glossed over it, but the definitions in the front end come exclusive, come right out of the bill. They're not changed in any way. That's where they, so that we're just lifting those directly, so there's no confusion.
great.
Great.
And we have 1,000 feet from a school, right?
No, 500.
500, which is the 1,000?
It's from another establishment.
Oh, another establishment, right? Good.
So is that 1,000 feet, as Mike said, that's, it can be short, it can be lessened or lengthened, whatever. So what do people think about that? 1,000 feet, isn't that, if we were gonna have a bunch of them, we could have one, if you take Four Corners, we could have one where that, say, smoke shop is, and then one by Dollar General. And then, I don't know, where else? One at the Standard, maybe.
I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, but you obviously, you know, you can obviously make changes that are more restrictive during the hearing. So if you are, you know, obviously not wanting to reach consensus today, we could even if you think there's any chance that could be reduced, we could go to hearing with everything at 500. And if people are saying, we're not sure, you could pump it up from there. But if we go in with 1,000, you've got to adopt 1,000 or more. So if you think that's a possibility, we'd want to lead with something less.
Yeah, let's lead with 500 and 500, and then we can increase it during the hearing.
I think that's, yeah. And we did during ours, chose some likely locations for these things. And we presented some maps just to show them what would fall into it. And we picked some stuff out. So it's not hard to do. So, you know, that I think for the public, that was helpful. The other question that came up was, can you use some of the revenues to pay for additional police presence or pay for another resident trooper and the answer is pretty much no. The law says what you can use it for. It's sort of fluffy in a lot of ways, but that would not be a sort of a justified use. So if that was a big push from the community, you'd have to find a way to take the sale tax revenue, pump up one section of the budget and pull money out of that line item. You'd have to do some little switching around, but you can't.
Yeah,
Can't
Craig.
Yeah, Michael, how did they determine 3% was the right amount? Is that written into the legislature, or did they just pick 3% for themselves?
The legislature included that, and I don't know how they got to that point, but that's across the board statewide.
Thanks.
A couple little things that I think Jolene might be with a customer, but let's see. On number 5, accessory and co-located uses, special permit will be required to establish and or co-locate an additional cannabis related use on the property. Wait, was that the one? Oh no, sorry, section 6C, just at the last sentence, add and filed on the land records by the applicant.
Okay.
Oh, limited retail. That was the other thing Jolene brought up. I'll let you speak, Jolene. What else? You had a bunch of stuff.
Just curious what that term actually means. Is it limited in hours? Is it limited in quantity? What is limited retail? Is that from the statute?
I believe that comes right out of the bill, right, Robin? There's just because they would get a different license, and the license restricts what they can do.
So limited retail. Can we define limited retail or something? Because it just feels like how are we going to tell what limited retail really means?
Has the state defined it?
I don't want to. I see Robin looks like she's thinking.
We can try to take a look. I don't think they did, to be honest. I'm trying to recall. It's been a while since I looked at all their definitions, but we could take a peek and see if they did.
And yeah, they only just recently actually codified all of this into statute. We were chuckling in the office the other week because it is section 420 in the statutes. Like which was an existing section that they for like health clubs, and they started adding this stuff into it. So they could have found another number, but somebody had some fun. Right. So we'll see if we can lift some of that language to make that more clear.
Okay, good.
They do not define limited retailer, just so you know. I already pulled it up.
Maybe it means they're limited to that and they can't sell groceries or something.
Let me try to, it's not in their definitions, but let me see if they have it somewhere else. No, let me try it another way.
Can't sell pizza in the same place.
Yeah, right.
That would be unfair competition to the pizza places.
And so one of the things that you may also want to consider, and this is a discussion for the town council, but in this thinking about parks, playgrounds, et cetera, is that towns can pass, and some have, an ordinance to prohibit consumption on town property. So if that may be something that the council wants to consider, but that would have to come from them.
Yeah, that's outside of our jurisdiction. Yeah.
So initially you all were going to have a joint meeting with the town council, and then, we talked about that, and I talked with Ryan about it, and I wasn't sure, we weren't really sure what the ask was going to be, but how are other towns handling that, Mike?
A memo or something to the board or whoever the legislative body is saying, we're doing this as a commission. We're going to endeavor to go through a process, and, we'd love input from you if you have any. But,
But we're just referring the regs to them, right? I mean, that's what we would normally do, or maybe go beyond that.
I think, some towns, very few, have gone and done complete prohibitions on the use and consumption and everything start to finish. And that would be required to be done by ordinance. If you wanted to prohibit the use, you could do it here. But I think just making them aware that the commission is perhaps scheduled a public hearing to consider the regs puts them on notice. But I don't know that you want to invite them to be in your lane, frankly.
Yeah, I would agree. I would notify them, but I don't want to be, I'd rather not have a joint meeting.
Okay. But they can consider the ordinance. I mean, we have no smoking in parks and in town buildings, so they could probably just add it right there.
They can do what they want with that. That's their lane.
Yep.
We won't go in their lane. They shouldn't come in our lane.
Okay.
Bingo.
Any other things that we need to talk about with this?
So the next step would be a public hearing, right?
Right, so we could move to schedule this public hearing on Monday, at Monday's meeting. So we could do it at your November meeting or December first meeting in December.
Yeah, that's,
Probably first meeting in December.
that sounds good.
And then does that give us I have to go look at the calendar and all the timeframes, but would that give us, if we did the meeting in December, would that give us enough time, Mike?
What's the meeting date?
The meeting is like the first Monday, so that would be
Yeah.
the 5th.
As long as you, refer it out to CROG sooner versus later, get it scheduled. That'll give you, because you meet twice, right? Or you once a month or twice?
Twice a month
Twice.
with exceptions.
The 5th and the 19th.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you'd be opening the hearing on the 5th, having discussion and continuing it to the 19th, close and act. But depending.
Don't we need
Nice.
time, Mike, though, don't we usually say effective in 30 days? Would that take us past the deadline?
It doesn't have to be 30 days out.
Okay,
It could be, you can set the effective date for less than that. Based upon the referral to CROG, you might make the 2nd November meeting.
For 30 days.
What
Yeah,
is the
so
deadline? What is the deadline?
Which
No,
deadline?
12/31.
What happens at 12/31?
Your moratorium expires.
Yeah.
Oh, our moratorium.
So your meeting in November would be the 21st.
Yeah, we could get the referral out on Tuesday if we schedule the public hearing.
I mean, I could get you the revision. I mean, Robin and I could tweak it by tomorrow, and you can refer it to CROG tomorrow. And that would pick up an extra meeting.
Okay,
Can we
If you
jump
wanted.
back to the limited retailer for 1 second? So when I look at the reg, it's referenced under the cultivation and production establishments, which we're getting rid of. So limited retailer is part of cultivation establishments. You can have like a small portion and the state establishes it. That's a limited retailer. So that section is coming out. So that wouldn't even be applicable. So is there some other location that you guys saw in the reg that I'm missing?
so it's listed, Robin, under 5 accessory co-located uses too. Are we taking that out too?
Yeah, so the
You'd have to.
the co-located uses should come out if you're not doing the cultivation.
Because
So-
the only way you could co-locate is in conjunction with cultivation.
With cultivation. So yes, that would be coming out also.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So 4
Good.
and 5 are coming out in their entirety.
Yes, yep.
So we're not even allowing, we wouldn't have manufacturing, packaging, and laboratory testing as primary principal uses?
I thought we were just getting rid of the cultivation.
That's right,
So-
but I think, because we don't speak to manufacturing, packaging, and laboratory uses and delivery.
Right, so those are under 5 as like a co-located use with cultivation, which is typically where you're gonna see the manufacturing and the producing. If you guys want to spell them out as allowing them as a primary use, you could do that if you wanted to. That's completely up to you. But typically you don't see them on their own just because the cost
Yeah.
associated with the growing and getting these plants up and running is pretty significant. So I would doubt you would see an application for them separate, though you could allow it if you wanted to.
So usually the manufacturing is at the same place as the production.
It is.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
That makes sense.
So one, but delivery could be separate, right?
Have to.
Yeah, I mean, delivery actually by statute, you can't really control
Okay,
where to deliver, so it's not something you can put in your regulations. So that's not even something to be concerned with.
But we could allow a place where the delivery would come from.
Like
So
where the truck's parked?
Yeah,
Yeah, I suppose you could. I don't know that they would actually have anything on site, so it might not even be
Yeah.
a use that falls under this.
okay, all right.
Because I don't think they can take any, I think they leave, pick it up, deliver it, and return empty. I don't think they actually house anything.
no, they're not supposed to under the statute, right?
Okay, well, so we'll just take that out.
Okay.
Well, that simplifies things.
Sure does.
That's what I like. It's my mantra.
Can we arrange this so that we're not the first one to get this approved?
No, you're not.
You're not. There's
Okay, all
many
right, all right.
municipalities that are approved for it already.
I remember in Massachusetts, the very first one that opened had the long lines and everything, so. We
I
don't
think
want to
they
be the
have-
very first one.
I think there's well over 50 communities that have
Yeah.
already passed regs in the state.
Are there any that are actually open yet?
No, but I think because of the delay at the state level, not necessarily at the municipal level.
Okay,
So from a, Robin and Mike, can you think of anything that we're forgetting here or we should be adding?
No, I think, they're pretty standard and straightforward from town to town. It's really the separating distances are unique to towns and the locations, obviously. But, the best practices that are in the regulation are what you're seeing in most other municipalities. And from my perspective, I looked in Massachusetts when I was drafting the regulations for Durham. And so like the operational plan, the odor mitigation plan, that's all of the stuff that Massachusetts was looking at when they came up with their statute and what their municipalities look at also. So I think we're pretty consistent across the board.
Great. All right.
good.
So we will get you some revisions.
Yeah.
By tomorrow, so you can get this going.
Yes, Craig.
Is there any limitation on delivery? Can people deliver next door to a school?
Yes.
Okay.
They can't deliver it to the school itself.
Probably not, but yeah, there's
Yeah, we can't limit the use of the product. We can only limit the use of the property.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Just for the commission, for the committee members, and I was wondering if Robin and Mike could stay on after this, but Friday at 9 a.m., does that work for folks? And just pick like every other week on a Friday?
how about 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.? Okay, I will look at the calendar, we'll get some stuff on it, and then moving forward for next year, we'll schedule those for your regular meetings.
Okay,
Okay, great. Robin and Mike, do you have a minute just to stay on to talk about our next project?
Sure.
Okay,
see you later.
thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.